All right. Welcome to Health Second Opinion. This is our Spring Clean 2021 workshop here. And for those of you tuning in, hopefully at home live, what we've got going on here is you can text your questions to the six. Let's do it the different one. Let's use this one. Aha. Actually, I'm going to hide that one as we get this all worked out here on our new system of being able to utilize multiple screens here. One of the biggest things as we get started is that when we talk about spring cleaning, most of us think about our houses and switching out our clothes and doing the different things that we do in spring and fall to prepare for the next seasons. And oftentimes, not as much about our bodies. But the reality is we have to understand that there's definitely a need for that too. And, during this workshop, we're really going to be talking about or exploring the idea of really, is there a need for that in the body? And so one of the biggest things is that folks need to be aware of the fact that when we talk about toxicity in the human body, it is really the fact that the environment that we come in contact with, literally there's 70,000 chemicals that are used just commercially. And on average, persons coming in contact with about 2,100,000 toxins a day, literally marinating in the soup of toxicity. There's 3,000 chemicals added to our food. That's just added to our food. Then there's 10,000 chemicals used in the processing, packaging, and preserving of our food. When we think about our houses, it is a good idea to spring clean. The EPA estimates that it's on the good end, your internal environment of the home is about 5 times more toxic than the outside air, going up to 100 times more toxic than the outside air. And so literally when we're at home, we feel safe and everything. In all reality, a lot of times we are just marinating in these chemicals. And so one of the things that we're going to be touching on is really just where those chemicals are coming from and what we can do to continue to minimize that toxic load. And so one of the biggest things that isn't mentioned on this slide that I hope to really illuminate for you is that if you were to take the number of prescriptions prescribed every year in the United States and divide it by the number of people living in the United States, then there is about 13 prescriptions per person. That's per man, woman, and child in the United States. So if you think about that, a vast majority of those are going to be people who are on those prescriptions in a habitual way. They are prescribed those, so think about man, woman, and child. So that means that a lot of people are on 20, 30 medications, things like this. We see it in the office all the time. And so that is one of the biggest sources of toxicity right there. Think about how many chemicals those are and what that toxic burden is on the body. And so one of the things that we can do is minimize that. Maybe not be able to eliminate it, but definitely try to minimize that. And so we have to be aware of where the problem's coming from if we're going to be in the solution. And so, what is the toxic damage? Where does that mainly land? The liver, kidneys, the detox organs, one of those being the skin. By surface area, our skin is the largest organ of our body and is the third leading detoxifier of the human body. So, we're going to talk about its role and how we can maximize the skin's ability to help us detox, but it also can be a major source of toxicity. And so, there's a lot of the damage that's happening. How real is this toxic load? Well, I think that should sum it up. If you go to the CDC's website, 95% of all cancer being related to diet and toxins. And so if you look at the numbers, it's actually, they'll state it as 90%. And as you read on into the paragraph, you'll notice that they say that another 5% approximately is DNA, and that would leave 10%. as the amount that is left for the amount that's DNA, genetic. But 5% of that DNA or genetic is caused by damage from diet and lifestyle. So once again, 5% of the genetic is actually going to be related right back to the very thing that the rest of the 90% was being caused by. And so that's a big, daunting thing, but yet it also means that we have 95% of the solution. That if we can minimize the amount of toxins coming into our body and we can improve our lifestyles, then not only is that the cause, but it's also the cure. And therefore, the better we are at it, the more control we have over our lives and the better our outcomes could be. And so when we move forward, my purpose really here tonight is to help establish the fact that, in Max Living, we really want to reestablish and be the standard of healthcare, and not just in my office, but in all the Max Living offices around the country. And by being that standard, really in all reality, we're actually establishing a real healthcare system, something that when we think about the commonplace, common healthcare system, we really don't have a healthcare system. And it's not just me who's saying that. I know a lot of times it is health a second opinion, but this one isn't an opinion. This is a fact stated by Medicare. And so when we look at this slide, really, that care that seeks to prevent disease, promote health, and prolong or enhance the quality or quantity of life is not considered medically necessary. That's a slide that is a highlight of the Medicare manual. So literally, when we look at this, it is mandated by Medicare that they don't pay for things that promote health, prevent disease, prolong or enhance the quality of life. And I mean, that is probably a mind blower, purple smoke for a lot of people, in that they think that that's healthcare. Well, I mean, the definition of health, we have to get back to that it is optimal physical, mental, and social well-being, not the absence of disease or infirmity. And that's from Dorland's Medical Dictionary. And so if Medicare, the setting standard for the rest of the country, will not pay for anything that prevents disease or promotes health, why do we call it healthcare? Well, it's just so we can have a pretty name for it. It's, sick care. It's very needed triage care. It's emergency care. It's all things that most of us, and me included, have used and will use sometimes in our lives. But it's not healthcare. It's sick care. It's disease management. And so when I say that Max Living is setting the standard, what I'm saying is that literally setting up a system that does promote health, that allows you to prevent disease, that allows you to prolong and enhance the quality of your life, that's healthcare by definition. And the 5 essentials of Max Living are literally the standard and really the only template for living and lifestyle that can be implemented on a personal basis. And so, when we look at this, in all reality, really want to focus on helping you exit conventional, providing you a template that allows you to implement that template for you and your family to minimize the toxic burden, to allow you to have a better expectation of life, quality, quantity, and that it allows you to understand that you're doing things from a perspective and I guess it would be a better paradigm, would be a better word, a way of doing things that you should expect it. You should hand down that legacy of health and how to have it. And so one of the big things is that as I flip back and forth between the screens here, folks, why chiropractic? Why Max Living? Why are we doing a workshop on toxicity and minimizing it? Because we are the standard. And it's chiropractic, literally, because that's the system of healthcare that really is there to promote and teach people about the philosophy of chiropractic. that understanding that the central nervous system controls and coordinates all other function. And so if your spine and nervous system, I like to use the phone analogy a lot, where we look at the brain as maybe the cell tower, and your connection is the internet, and that internet is the flowing from down the spine, down from your brain, down through the spinal cord, out the network of nerves to every organ and tissue. And so if your body, being the cell phone, is not connected properly to the cell tower, then you're going to have dysfunction and disorganization. You're not going to have a proper speed and function. And so, if your cell phone's functioning at 3 bars and 4 is the max, and it's only functioning at 3, well, you probably don't even notice. And that's a lot of people, just not paying attention to their health. Well, then, okay, it drops down to 2 bars of service. Now, sluggish service, cell phone doesn't work well. Maybe even people, they're expressing what they think of as symptoms, where maybe they have psoriasis, maybe they have eczema, maybe they have digestive issues, IBS, maybe they have, other autoimmune disorders. Maybe they don't have enough energy. Well, that's still not functioning at 100%. Things get down to 1 bar of service for the human body, just like the phone. It doesn't work very well, right? Well, now the human body, now it's maybe at death's doorstep. And 0 bars of service being no connection, then their phone doesn't work, it's worthless, and our bodies don't work either, and they die. And so the idea is to restore that function, and that's chiropractic's main goal, is to allow the innate intelligence, our soul, our spirit, to run that body through the way that we were created. And that is our brain connecting to our body, controlling, coordinating all that function through a properly functioning spine. So the question becomes, step number 1, keeping the main thing is minimizing toxicity or any other aspect of your health is, do you know if you're subluxated? Do you know what the health of your spine is? Do you know if it is normal? Do you know that about your children? What about your grandchildren? If you haven't had it assessed, then you don't know. And so the only way to do that is to get a chiropractic exam, and if needed, get the x-rays, and that's done in a Max Living chiropractic office. So for those of you at home who aren't a patient in the office or other offices around the country, well, that's step 1. If you maybe are a patient and you just haven't been doing things properly, get back on your home care, get the re-exam you need, or if you're on track with things and with your wellness care or your corrective care, just stay on board with that. And then all the things that we help you do to exit that conventional paradigm and implement the Max Living 5 Essentials and minimize that toxicity is going to work better. It's going to allow everything to flow better. And so as we move forward, really, where are the exposures coming from, and how do we start minimizing them through our awareness of where they are? So as we look at this, those exposures and the top toxins, really one of them, and we've already talked about, prescriptions being probably the number 1 source of toxin chemicals, cleaners, and one of the things, text your questions. Also, as this continues, those of you who are tuning in live right now, if you would text the office, your email address, or if you're a patient already, just text us and you'll show up in the system, and we will email you the resources, the recipes for these replacement cleaners, the QR codes that you can scan to be able to download the apps that we'll talk about, also the resources, all the resources that I've used for this workshop will be available to you, so you can text your questions there. All right, so let's see here. Let me choose a different banner here and make this work better. There we go. All right, so when we look at cleaners, when we think about all the things that we're coming in contact with, a lot of those things are things like fragrances, colors, propylene glycol, triclosan, tricloban. Right now, gosh, the disinfectants that people are using for during this 2020 year and now on into 2021. Talk about exposure. As we get into water here in a minute, I'll talk about it again. But if you look at the concept of during a 15-minute shower, you're going to absorb about 8 cups of water through your skin. That shows you the amount that you can absorb through the skin. So all of these things that we're putting on ourselves, those are getting in as a toxic load on the body like none the world has ever seen. On a daily basis, everything we've touched, how necessary it's been. Now it's about 1 in 10,000 chance of having a contact amount of COVID to be able to get enough to have an infection. So that's the rates that they've are thrown out. So don't know. We're not going to know for years till we analyze the data, but yet we know the toxicity is higher. And so one of the things that we want to do is really look at what can we do to minimize it? So this is a QR code, and Mike can actually scan it right now with your cell phone if you have your cell phone on you and you're looking at this through another device. And you can use that cell phone to scan that QR code, and it'll pull up EWG's Skin Deep. And so this app is something you have on your phone, and then you can literally take the products, and if your products that you're using are in the database of EWG, the Environmental Working Group, then you'll scan that barcode on the back, and it'll pull your product up, and then it'll tell you how allergic it is, how cancerous it is, or cancer causing, and then it'll also tell you the toxicity levels in there, and it'll give it a rating. And so you can literally look at the things that you're using now. That's a big deal. It's really easy to use. And so one of the big things out of the scan document that you're going to be receiving, could I have that, Anna? Can I have that scan document that you use? Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so as we move into the next slide here, this is really a huge thing for when we look at cosmetics. One of the big sources of things that ladies use, and I mean that's the foundations and the different things that a lot of people think of as cosmetics, but we all use cosmetics, guys too, because that's that category that includes shampoos and conditioners and lotions and oils and the different things that we put on our skin in any beauty product or cleansing form. And so one of the big topics of that is going to be heavy metal exposure. And so, one of the big things is we look at the cancer's a big one that's caused by heavy metal exposure. But look at that list of things that you can see. And I mean, all of us, if you look there's probably somebody in your family, if not you, who have one or more of those things on that list. And so again, when we look at our cosmetics, what is the fact about, again, how much of a problem is that for you is totally different for me, because we all use different things at home. And so how much is it? Well, I mean, you have to make that assessment. And that's something that during the spring clean of your home and during the spring clean of your house, when you look at those cleaners, you're going to get the recipes, should you text if you want them, and the data from this PowerPoint, then all of that'll come to you. You'll have those recipes to have clean, safe cleaning products to be able to clean your home with, disinfect, do the things that you need to do, knowing that you're not going to be poisoning yourself and your family. And, that's one I got to step back and think, man, how amazing my wife's been with doing a lot of the research for our family and looking at this, because in how we implement this, we have a toddler, we've got a 3-year-old, now we've got a 10-month-old. And so, cleaning supplies and how things are clean but yet not toxic is a huge thing for us. When we look at the EWG for cosmetics, one of the big things, again, you can scan this QR code straight from the screen, most likely, but if not, it comes to you in your email. And this is going to pull up Skin Deep. And Skin Deep is their version of looking at the products that you're putting on you. Versus Healthy Living, and Food Scores is the other app for the cleaners. Skin Deep is that where literally all the products, pull them up, scan them, but it tells you about what you are using. But then are you going to go to the store and scan every barcode, pick through them, look at what you're going to put and replace these products that you want to have with you. I want to go back to a piece of some of the research. Let's take a look here where I put those notes. I apologize. Here we go. When we look at the cosmetics that you're going to be replacing, I want to talk to you about the heavy metal hazard, the hidden risks of heavy metals in makeup. The Environmental Defense tested 49 different face makeups, including foundations and concealers and blushes and bronzers and mascaras and eyeliners and eyeshadows, lipsticks, and glosses. From a heavy metal standpoint, they looked 96% of those tested had lead. 96% contained lead, 90% beryllium, 61% thallium, 51% contained cadmium, and 20% contained arsenic. Really? Arsenic? And you're directly putting it on you? And this is allowed? And one of the things that admit limitation here of usage of the type of data or software we're using. Then inside of one of the resources, the next slide is, let's take a look here. There we go. The FDA regulation. This is the sad truth about what is happening with regulation here in the United States. And getting back to that, are you going to scan every barcode? Are you going to look at these things? That top, I guess, web address is where you can watch a video where it's an interview of somebody from Congress, a lady talking to a member of the cosmetics that says, hey, she's asking her, well, if there is a problem with a baby's lotion and you know it's toxic, do you have to report it to the FDA? She says, no. And she says, do you have to report that you know things that are toxic chemicals like formaldehyde are in these baby products? Do you have to report that to the FDA? No. And goes on and on. She goes through this long list of things, and you should watch that video along with the different things that are on there. You can follow those sources and you can learn it for yourself and watch those videos and understand just how little regulation is going on and just how amazing the need is. And so when we look at this, my wife's done the research for our family. It was an easy call to use Beautycounter across the board. You can text Megan at 423-243-7308. And text her 423-243-7308. I don't have a banner for it. She can reach back to you with the information. But this is just some of the things that they did in 2020. They had 100% of the wins that they went for. They reduced the plastic load, which we're going to get into here in a minute. Plastic tubes avoided was 235,000. They managed to pass 3 laws in the country to which their laws have not been passed in the United States for FDA regulations since like 1938. And so these 3 new laws are like long overdue. That's kind of an understatement, right? They basically, committing to formulating without toxicity, again, was another one. 100% sustainable packaging is a goal that they have by 2025. Complete carbon neutrality by 2030. In October 2020, the Safer Fragrance Bill, Toxic-Free Cosmetics Act was passed. In December of 2020, the Sustainable Chemistry Research and Development Act was passed. And these are things that Beautycounter did. They donated over $655,000 to mission-aligned organizations. They audited 100% of the mica suppliers for their cosmetics, because one of the things you don't know about cosmetics, the mica, the different elements that are in there and that they use for all colors and things, those are slave labor in a lot of countries. That mining is slave labor. And so just like in the fishing industry, there's a lot of slave labor. And so we have to get back in these other countries where this mining is going on, and they did it. They did 100% audit. And so to me, that's amazing that they're putting in this much. Not only are they producing a non-toxic product, So I think in the United States, there's, and I might be slightly off on this, there's something like 40 chemicals that are banned in, by Beautycounter, there's like 1,800. The European Union is banned right around 1,400. So over and above any standard, above and beyond. And so that's why it's safe, and you're not going to look back and, you know, look at the baby powder lawsuits and the things that we see going on 20 years later, 30 years later. We're not going to look back and get those things from Beautycounter. It's just going to be safe and sustainable. So I look forward to that's what we use. And I get that question all the time. What do you do, Doc? Well, there you go. That's what we use in our home. When it comes to another source, your pots and pans. Literally, the coated pans, Teflon coated, or the green pans, or all these non-stick cookwares. This is the chemical that leaches out, and PTFE. And you know, some of the things that it can do. Researchers link the Teflon products to carcinogen related, and so, you know, again, what are we going to do? How are you going to replace it? And that's what we're going to do. The fact is that if you haven't already, folks, this is a big one to me. I think that it's easy to do, 1 or 2 pots at a time. Stainless steel is your main thing for cooking, then also cast iron. Those are glass. What about Pyrex for all your baking and storing, which we're going to touch on just a second with plastics. This is something that is, you can ask for, like we did, we would ask for this for Christmas from different family members. Hey, if anybody wants to get us, you know, get us some plastics or some glass storage containers to replace our plastic with. Now the house, we just really don't have much plastic around. And so it's a great thing for Christmas and birthdays, pots and pans. I know it's not glamorous. Guys, I don't know if I'd recommend doing it for your spouse or your girlfriend. Let the other family members do that. You might get in trouble. But yet it is good and functional. And I guess you'll have to make that decision for yourself on how possibly not nice that would turn out. So then what are we going to do here? What's another major source? It's microplastics. One of the things that I think that plastic storage, leaching of things like your parabens and phthalates and these chemicals that are definitely really toxic for our bodies. Research in the United States showed that 94.4% of tap water samples contain plastic fibers, as did 82.4% of the samples in India and 72.2% of the samples in Europe. So worst of the worst. Again, you know, we're polluting like no others here in the United States. And so estimated the average person drinks 1,769 plastic particles from tap water every single day. You know, these are hormone disruptors. They mess with your endocrine system, to which so many people, you know, they think of all of the things like the cancers, getting back to that 95% of cancer. Again, close that loop with the fact that these things like BPA, we got rid of out of baby bottles because we knew it was carcinogenic. Well, what about the can liners, the canned food liners, and the different things, the other endocrine disruptors that are coming from plastics that are causing the estrogen-sensitive cells in our body, which all of them are sensitive to estrogen, but the things like breast cancer, uterine cancer, ovarian cancer, testicular, prostate, these things that can be definitely more so influenced by your estrogen mimickers in your body. So one of the ways to minimize that is to minimize those plastics. And so again, hey, how are we going to exit the conventional? Going to get you those glass things as your storage containers. I like Costco. I go there and buy things relatively cheaper than I can find them anywhere else. And if you know of a better place, please text that for getting these things. So now, spring clean. What about that water? As we talked about, again, 15-minute shower. You're going to get at least about 8 cups of water. The APA found that things like contains 84,000 chemicals in the average tap water, including pesticides, chlorine, VOCs, and that you expose yourself on average to 25 gallons of toxic contaminated water per day, and your skin repels about 75% of the chemicals and toxins. So we're talking about that 25% that comes into your body. And the steam from unfiltered water, TCE is the chemical that is really readily emitted into the steam from taking a hot shower, and is inhaled, and it affects heart rate, liver damage, evidence of kidney damage. Some people get concentrated solutions of this and can end up having rashes, harmful to the nervous system, the liver, the respiratory system, the immune system. Hey, there's a big topic today. Here's something that you can do is get a shower filter and be able to minimize those toxins coming in. We've had some directly on the spout, right there in each shower head and throughout the house. Whole water systems throughout the home, I think, are a step better. We've just not gone there yet. But again, it's a yet. And so where are the toxins coming from your food? I think that minimizing those the toxins in food, obviously it's about shopping organic, starting to minimize things coming from farm-raised animals, things like farm-raised fish, farm-raised cattle, farm-raised, or I should say non-grass-fed. You know, they're sitting around huddled up in their own feces, just literally inside of these chicken houses or in these stockyards and things like this, being constantly marinating in their toxic soup. And then we're eating them, and that's concentrating in us. But just what about the toxins in the storage? Like we got back to the 10,000 chemicals that are being added in the processing, packaging, preserving of our foods. The aspartame, the nitrates, the refined oils, the genetically modified foods that are going to genetically modify us. That's what we will make our new DNA out of. That's what we make every cell out of. And so, you know, we have to look at, again, what can we do to exit the conventional? And that's going to be just looking for the replacements. Shop, again, ewg.org, their Dirty Dozen, Clean 15. Great resource to be able to minimize your toxic load. The Dirty Dozen are the 12 most common things that have the highest pesticide residues. Minimize buying those and buy those organic. Clean 15 will have lower amounts of toxic residue. So go ahead, maybe save some money by buying those if that's, you know, it's a priority to all of us, but it can be a big decision maker for a lot of people in how you're shopping. And so that's how one way you can prioritize. Eat more frozen or fresh. Fresh is best. Frozen or dried food. Try to minimize your canned food, again, because of the BPA linings and most of the canned goods. You're going to be getting a lot of that plastic exposure that is, we know, an endocrine disruptor and a causer of cancer. The bioaccumulation, you know, one of the things I like to touch on, I found a new documentary that's out there called Seaspiracy. This is another great documentary that you can watch. It's a Netflix documentary. And watching Seaspiracy kind of brought to light all of the amount of corruption and the amount of toxic burden that happens from fish. Basically, the amount of how it's hard to sum up just how contaminated the farm-raised fish are, and how the overfishing of our seas and the amount of chemicals that we're dumping into the oceans and the amount of microplastics. One of the things that is the fishing nets, and hopefully you've heard of the plastic island out there on the Pacific that's about the size of Texas, and it's full of fishing nets and plastics, and it's not just straws. You know, some people have moved to the minimizing plastic straws like we did too. And this points out the fact that the greatest threat to our oceans is the overfishing and the fishing nets when they get rid of them and cut them loose. That plastic's just floating out there, gathering things, and end up in that Pacific Island of trash. And it's constantly breaking down into the microplastics, just like the microplastics are inside of our tap water. And think about if you're getting exposed to 1,765 different particles of the plastics in your filtered tap water, your treated water, and all this stuff. What about that ocean that's floating out there, that island that's floating out there in the ocean, and how that's breaking down, and how that's percolating throughout the ocean, and then what we're going to be seeing in the fish that we eat, the mercury contents, the other heavy metals, the toxins, the plastics, and what's that going to do to us? So I think, I agree with him. I've started to minimize the amount of fish that I'm taking in, still using the fish oil supplements. I think it's going to be a concentrated way to get that what I'm looking for, the omegas, without eating as much fish. But also just looking at some of the things, like I said, the piracy and the slave labor that's being used. So another source of toxins that might not, again, we're trying to illuminate what is the things that might be behind your radar. And that's going to be, where are your supplements in their toxicity levels? They have a lot of binders and fillers in them. If you're taking tablets still, wow, those are going to be those binders and fillers in there. And you can do the experiment I encourage with all my everyone I can come in contact with. Take those tablet supplements, put them in a glass, fill it up, cover those supplements with vinegar, and stir them up every once in a while. Move them around like they would if they were being tumbled and moved through, and with the movement of the stomach, villi, and try to move them around and leave them in there for 30 minutes, and then look at them. If those things aren't completely dissolved, well, then it's not going to dissolve. They're going to pass through, and you're literally wasting your money. You're flushing it down the toilet. Not to mention the fact that what's in the supplement itself, how bioavailable is that? And so, are you getting artificial colors? Are you getting artificial fragrances? Are additives and preservatives? Have you read the label of your supplement? We teach food label reading classes, but what about supplement label reading classes? And are those supplements in their closest to the natural form, meaning they're bioavailable? That's one of the things that I really love about Max Living, and our brand promise to people is that we're looking at things being in their bioavailable form, 95% bioavailable or better, and then you can read the list of things that we don't allow. And that's really, when we look at the major sources of toxicity, you sure don't want to be getting toxins from the supplements that you're taking to try to do something positive, right? And so that's why, again, just really proud of all the things that we're doing here with Max Living, and providing you not only the information, but the resources. And so what's something that, the major products that we use are something called Max Cleanse, and then the Daily Detox System. And the biggest difference between the two is the Max Cleanse is really just a kind of a gentle, use it daily, constantly, herbs, supplements, to be able to, in a consistent, easy to use way, just constantly be in a state of helping eliminate some of these toxins. What about, versus the detox kit? Well, the detox kit is a 2-part system. It's meant more for a 30-day window where you're looking to really detox. Have some patients doing that right now. And he said, one of the guys came in today and he said, wow, I don't know if this was rash and all this the things that I'm having, the things I'm coughing up, and the things I'm getting rid of, and how bad my body is reacting to this detox is, I wasn't expecting. And I thought, okay, so right here, better warning that the fact is taking that activated charcoal to bind things up after you've had this day supplement where it's helping you detox the glutathione, the superoxide dismutase, and the different things that are in the day pill that allow you to pull things out, and then utilizing that activated charcoal pill at night is really a 30-day power cleanse that is very effective. Definitely doesn't cause, or hasn't ever for me allowed me to have any kind of bouts with diarrhea or anything like that, but just definitely a powerful way to, while again, what's the best practice? Best practice would be to be really eating clean, to already have made some of these other steps to minimize toxins coming into your body so that it's not just getting rid of what you're dealing with every day. It's really going to be you're minimizing things. Now it's going to be pulling things out of the places that toxins are stored, our fat, and in our interstitial tissue, and things that are bound up in the lymphatic system, and being able to help pull things out and help you eliminate those is really a big deal. So you might as well get the best out of it by making sure that you're doing the steps that you already can. Another thing that I think is a mindset that a lot of people really don't look at their mindset as a toxin. We do in chiropractic and in Max Living, we talk about what causes subluxation, what causes the nervous system to break down, what causes vertebra to move out of place and break down the communication between the brain and the body. And we thought the 3 T's: thoughts, traumas, and toxins. And so if your thoughts are toxic, and we can all use the common thing of, you see somebody who's depressed, that. You can see it in their body most of the time, their body language. You see somebody who's anxious. You see somebody who's agitated, angry. Those emotions, when they're chronic and they're consistent, one of the most toxic things that happens is this chronic release of cortisol. And cortisol is the stress hormone that's designed to keep your blood pressure elevated. It's designed to keep your cholesterol, your clotting factors, your platelets, all of the things that allow you to stop bleeding high. And when it's done on a prolonged basis, that is a toxic way of, it's chemical. Your body's in a state of survival. So it's constantly using the survival chemicals and the survival things that aren't really there. You're not going to get wounded by the bear, most likely, and have an injury that needs to clot. So your blood's just this toxic soup of all of those clotting chemicals and repair molecules, and that's toxic. And so another thing is the toxic negativity. I think that very rarely I think only in other times of war, things like World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War, even Korea, that was our nation gripped in such negativity and combativeness and very looking at everything and everyone. There for a while, people were taught that even their own family should be feared and that they should avoid contact with them and social distance even at home, and all of these things which create such separation and such anxiety and such toxic negativity. And we realize now that it was just not the way to go. And it really is going to have a much longer lasting effect. Unfortunately, now we're fully coming to the understanding of the amount of devastation that the cure was worse than the cause. But this toxic negativity is something that needs to be addressed. And especially, I don't think there's anyone who's ever any harder on you than you. So what is that gerbil wheel, that mantra that you're telling yourself? Is it positive or is it negative? Maybe one of the greatest things you could do is analyze your thoughts. Analyze what you're saying about yourself on a daily basis. And so then take steps to relieve your mind, relieve your stress, do things that are positive, get reconnected with your family, get all the things back. One of the things that is the next part of this is that, we want to exit that conventional. We want to make sure that we're doing the things that we can do to free ourselves up and encourage ourselves to, the greatest technology or greatest threat, one of the greatest threats today from a mindset standpoint is technology, and the overuse of it in a bad way to constantly inundate ourselves with fear. And that fear raises cortisol. It becomes toxic. It becomes devastating. And we've had a very high potency of it. You could see it out there in the world with the lack of everyone being at each other, and the lack of love and respect and camaraderie that should be being passed during a time where we should be coming together. That's not really what's happened. We've been separated. And that's an unfortunate thing that's come out of this. But one of the things that should have come out of 2020 was this: oxygen and exercise. You know, there's a stat, I think it was Dartmouth, that put out at approximately 78% of those people who've died from COVID, were ventilated, or were hospitalized for COVID were considered obese. So where were Jane Fonda and Richard Simmons, right? Where were our 2020 versions of them, bringing in-house motivation, exercise, and all of these things, and helping people as a nation? What if we had come together and realized that we could lose weight together? What if the 325 million people all lost 10 pounds? Or if they, of the obesity rates, you know, let's say now 50% approximately of America is considered overweight or obese. And so what if that 50% had dropped 2 BMI points? What would that number of pounds look like? What would that have done to the hospitalization rate, the ventilation rate, and the death rate? And why weren't we focused on that? That's because we don't have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system. We have a disease management. We heard outside in artificial cure, not empowering the people. We need to empower the people. That's us, that's life, that's living. But that is the promotion of health, the preventing of disease, and the enhancing the quality and the quantity of life, which is real health care, but is mandated by Medicare in the manual. Not my opinion. They don't pay for that. That's not medically necessary. Well, I don't know what else is more medically necessary than saving lives, by empowering people to save their own lives. And so what's another thing, and how does exercise relate to toxicity? Well, again, like I mentioned again, the third largest detoxifier in the human body is your skin. And so if you don't sweat profusely every single day, then you're going to leave a certain level of toxicity in your body. So that's one of the things I see even during this, you know, winter, spring, summer, doesn't matter. It seems like everyone's trying to do everything they can to stay as cool as possible while they're exercising. And that we've miseducated the population, not even on how to exercise, but the fact that the exercise is meant to make you sweat, and that that's a part of it, and that that's part of the benefit. And so if you're not exercising hard enough to really sweat profusely, well, you're not exercising hard enough, or in a temperature that allows you to do that. And so you're missing part of the benefit. Well, if you want to minimize toxicity, use your third largest detoxifier. And so when you see me out here in the parking lot, or you see me out at the 4 fields and I'm wearing extra gear, I'd like to be getting some extra sunshine, enhancing my vitamin D, but sometimes if the temperature's not right for me to be able to exercise and sweat amazingly, well, then I've got to bulk up and get a lot more gear on and make sure that that happens. You know, the other thing about exercise, and I love Max T3, which is time, type, tempo, is the 3 T's, done by Fred Roberto. Go online. Again, the resources are there. Maxt3.com. It's about $20. Digital download, allows you to work out on vacation, allows you to work out in your home, and it's very equipment minimal. And then it's the time, type, and tempo of exercise that burns cortisol, and that reduces that stress hormone, which has an improvement of your all of your hormone profiles. It's going to have a great chance of doing that for you, as long as you can utilize how they're exercising it. And talk about cost effective and easy to use, and it minimizes a lot of those things that we use as excuses, which are, I don't have time, I don't have the money, I don't have the equipment, I don't. Well, how about you do? Start saying yes to you. Maybe that mindset that's toxic is a part of finding excuses to becoming the you could be. And this is one of the areas where I find that is one of the big deals. And so when we look at these things and start moving forward, health is that 100% function. So where are you measuring at? What's your measuring stick? If we're replacing conventional, we're exiting conventional, and we're entering into this new 5 essentials, where do you measure? Where do you start? What's your mindset like? Do you know how your spine and nervous system are functioning? Have you had an evaluation lately? If I gave you the nutritional quiz that we use in the office at people's first re-exam, how would you fare about your nutritional quality, quantity, the sources of things, the amount of fruits, the amount of vegetables that you eat every day? How would you rank? Exercise. Are you exercising for at least, with Max T3, 12 to 15 minutes, 5 days a week? For everybody, all the other types, probably 30 minutes to an hour, 5 days a week. Are you doing that? Then you're probably not getting your exercise. Have you already replaced your plastics and your cookware, and you already have you're already using Beauty Counter as your beauty products? Then what about your toxicity levels? How are you measuring it? If you're not measuring it, then you can't change it. What you don't know could be killing you. And so that's literally, since 95% of cancer, we're literally talking about the difference between overall lifetime, life and death, the number of quality quantity years. And so, we want to take action on these things and help people get what they need. And so action steps, if you're not a patient in a Max Living office, it's about becoming one. If you're not active, get reactivated. Take care of you and your family's nervous system so that all of the things that you're going to do with the nutrition, the exercise, the detoxification, the better mindset connects that better mindset to your body, and that all of those other functions are working properly. Plan your spring clean for your house, replacing those chemicals, those cleaning chemicals, all of those things that you can do. Getting the water filters. When are you going to buy those? When are you going to implement them? Plan those things out so that you can get what you need. And it's about you. And the fact is that so many of us put things off, and unfortunately, time creeps up on us all. So you can't put it off for tomorrow, because tomorrow never comes. Because when it does, it's actually a today. And so you got to take action today on someone. So, hey, why not today? So, love and respect. I hope that this helps you implement what you need. Text or email the office, and we'll get you those resources with the recipes and the different apps and the different research that we put together for this. And look forward to seeing you again on Health a Second Opinion. And this was Spring Clean 2021.